In today's episode, we're going to try to answer the age-old question, how much difference is there between a brush and brushless motor? And we're going to do that by testing two drills from the same manufacturer, from the same line, one with a brush motor, one with a brushless motor, and we'll see how much of a difference it really makes. Let's get going.
Well, another episode of the Clueless Dudes Real Tool Reviews. In front of you, you have two drills. They look rather similar. They both have the same color scheme. They're both 20 volts. They're both a half-inch chuck. So what's the difference? The one on the left is brushless. The one on the right's got a brush motor. How do I know it's got a brush motor? Well, because the manufacturers are super proud of their brushless models, and they put the word brushless all over it. So, if it doesn't say brushless, there's a good chance it's brush. Plus, I bought it and it said brushed. So, there we go. So now that we know that the one on the left is brushless and the one on the right is brushed, what is the real difference? Well, if you're the user of the drill, typically a brushless motor, given the same size battery and more or less the same size motor, is going to produce more power, that is more torque, than its brushed cousin. Also, perhaps even more importantly, the brushless motor is going to last longer in terms of how many hours you can run that motor and what tasks you can do before the motor burns out. Brushless motors are typically better in almost every respect over a brushed motor, and that's why brushless motors typically cost more. If you look at the drills side by side, they're both 20 volts, they're both half-inch chucks, and they both have two-speed transmissions, and both of them have many more torque settings than you possibly could use. Alright guys, let's do some side-by-side comparisons, and then we're going to do some testing. Here we go.
If you look at the two drills side by side, you notice that the brushless version is at 7.5 inches long. That is shorter than the brush version. The brush version is 9¼ inches. That is typical. Normally, a given tool in a brushless form will be shorter than its brushed cousin. And if you look at them side by side, you can see that the brushless version of the drill is just a tad bigger than the brushed version. 9 inches versus 8.9 inches. But you'll notice the chuck heights are more or less similar. Alright guys, let's do some testing. Before we get to our first test case, let's look at the batteries being used throughout this video.
Hey guys, just to avoid some confusion, some folks may get kits that have this white and black battery. Other people may have this black on black battery. The only difference between the two of them is one's got a fuel gauge on the front and the other one doesn't. The reason why I know that they're actually the same amount of power is this one here in big letters says 2 amp hours. They're both going to be 20 volts, but you're looking for 2 amp hours. This one over yonder, it says 2 amp hours. It's admittedly a much smaller print, but there it is, 2 amp hours. These are both 20 volts, 2 amp hour batteries. And for some reason, someone in marketing decided they're going to change the 20 volts into tiny print and the amp hours into big print, which is cool and all, but just know from a power point of view, they're identical. And the only reason why I'm using this one is so before each test, I can make sure the battery is fully charged. All right, guys, let's get going.
Our first test is going to be relatively easy for these two drills, a 3/8 inch spade bit into a bunch of 2x4s. Because this is a relatively easy test, and I expect both drills to be pretty even, I'm going to show both drills side by side doing the 3/8 inch spade bit test starting just about now.
Wow, as you can see, there are pretty much neck and neck. Any differences was probably user error. Alright, a 3/8 inch spade bit did not show much difference, so let's go much harder. Let's jump into a speed bit. If you're not familiar with a speed bit, it is a bit similar to a spade bit, except it's got this little thready piece on the front that pulls the bit through the wood. And so therefore, it's going to require a lot more torque, and now we may be able to see some differences between the drills. Alright guys, let's get going.
Time to try something a little bit more challenging. The speed bit. Similar to a spade bit, except it's got threads on the front that actually pulls the drill down at its own speed. For every revolution of the bit, the drill gets moved so far down. So basically, it's like having a screw in front of the bit that pulls the bit through the wood. Therefore, I can't control the speed other than slowing or increasing the rotation of the bit, and I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to go full bore on speed 2 to see if it can do it. If it can, great, and if not, I'll go speed 1. 1 1/8 speed bit, brushless, 3, 2, 1, and go.
Alright guys, as you can see, the brushless drill had no issues putting through the 1 1/8 inch speed bit. Now let's try the same thing, this time with the brush model, and see how it does.
Alright guys, same test, except this time with the brush version. I'm using a 1 1/8 inch speed bit, just like last time. And we'll see how it does, and try to do 4 holes right here. I have it in speed number 2. And here we go. 3, 2, 1, go! Alright, as you can see in speed number 2, the brushed motor, that is not the brushless one. The brush motor, which doesn't have the word brushless, can't do it in speed 2. Switching to speed 1. Speed 1 is slower, but it has more torque. And therefore, I'm going to have to brace myself a little bit more and get ready for some extra torque action here. 3, 2, 1, go. All the way through. And last but not least, hole number 4. Four holes, 1 1/8 inch. It's in speed number 1. You'll notice it's a lot slower. And that's because it's in speed 1. If I go back to speed 2, you can see it goes back to its old self. So the first difference between the brushless and the brush motor shows up. And that is that in speed number 2, a 1 1/8 inch speed bit is too much for the motor. Whereas with the brushless version, it had no troubles doing it. All right, guys, let's find some more testing to do.
All right, guys, we can now see some of the differences starting to show up between the brushless and brush versions of the drills. The brushless version was able to go right through in speed number 2 with the 1 1/8 inch speed bit, but the brush version could not do it. It had to shift down into low gear, go a little bit slower to get that extra torque. Now let's try something even harder. We're going to do a very similar test, but this time into pressure-treated wood. Here we go.
All right, drill fans, we're going to try something a little bit different. There's 2 pieces of 2x4 in front of me here. They're also pressure-treated 2x4s. If you're not familiar with pressure-treated 2x4s, it is much harder to drill through, much harder to screw through than a regular 2x4. So even though I'm going to be using the same bit, it's going to be harder to go through, and therefore it's going to be a better test to see how much power these drills have. So here we go. I'm going to start with the brushless with the same 1 1/8 inch speed bit and try to go through 2 2x4s and see what happens in speed number 2. If it can do it, great. If not, I'll try speed number 1. 3, 2, 1, and go. All right, as you can see, it went all the way through, no problem. So again, that was in speed number 2. And it's the brushless drill. All right, I'm going to try the same exact thing now. I'm going to try it with the brush motor. All right, guys, same bit, the 1 1/8 inch speed bit. I've got a fully charged 2 amp hour battery, and I'm starting off in speed number 2. My guess is it's going to stop right away, because if it couldn't go through regular lumber with the speed bit in speed number 2, I don't think it has much chance here. But just to say we did it, I'll do it. And here we go. 3, 2, 1, brushed motor. 2 amp hour battery, 1 1/8 inch speed bit, into 2 pressure treated 2x4s, go. Okay, it actually got further than I thought it would, and you can see where it stopped. I'm going to try to get it started one more time here. Nope, it won't do it. So now I'm going to be switching from speed number 2 to speed number 1. Let's see how it does. 3, 2, 1, and go. As you can see, once again, in speed number 1, the brush motor was able to do it. And so there you go. So there is a difference between the two, and it's a question of whether you have to shift down to speed number 1 or not. All right, let's find some more testing to see if we can see any more differences.
I'm starting to see the differences now between the brush and brushless motors inside these drills. Alright guys, I'm going to do another test to make the differences a bit easier to see visually. I'm going to use a lag bolt. By using lag bolt, you should be able to see visually the difference between the torque between the brushless motor and the brush motor. But I have one request before I start that testing. If you don't mind, please hit the subscribe key, because no matter how many views my videos get, if I don't have at least 1,000 subscribers, and I'm nowhere close, I won't get paid by YouTube. Even if it gets 1 million views, no money from YouTube unless I get 1,000 subscribers. Okay guys, on to some testing to let you see the difference between the torques visually with lag bolts. Here we go.
Time for the next test. Lag bolt. Going through 3 2x4s. Pressure treated, regular and pressure treated. And I can keep it to speed number 2 if it can do it. And if not, I'll switch to speed number 1. Here we go. 3, 2, 1, and go. Alright, it got that far in speed number 2. I'm actually going to stop it right here in speed number 2. And grab another lag bolt, and we'll try it with the brush motor. All right, the same exact test. Lag bolt, except this time with the brushed motor. I've got it in speed number 2. Let's see how far it can drive in a lag bolt in speed number 2. 3, 2, 1, and go. Okay, as you can see, it's a little bit higher, not too bad. So that gives you an idea of how much pressure speed number 2 has, or how much torque speed number 2 has on both the drills. I'm going to try again with the brushless motor, but this time in speed number 1. All right, back to the brushless motor and back to the first lag bolt. Let's see if it'll go the rest of the way in. Have it switching from speed number 2 to speed number 1, and we'll see how it does. All right, guys, here we go. In 3, 2, 1, go. All right, speed number 1, straight through, no problem. Let's switch now from the brushless motor back to the brush drill, and we'll see how it does. All right, back to the brushed motor. Got it in speed number 1, and let's see if we can put it the rest of the way in. 3, 2, 1, and go. And as you can see, it also got the job done.
Alright guys, you're able to see the difference a little bit in the torque between the brushless and brushed motors. Alright, now on to the main attraction, the endurance test. The goal here is to do as many holes as the drill will do. Originally I was going to set it up to be 159 holes. Then I decided to double it, make it 318 holes, and then I realized, oh, just keep going until it stops moving. Alright guys, the endurance test, starting just about now.
All right, time for the next challenge. I have a 3/8 inch bit. It's brand new. For each one of these tests I'm going to do now, I'm going to use a brand new bit so it's even. I have a fully charged 2 amp hour battery. It was fully charged and I left it on the charger for an extra half hour just to be sure. I don't know if that's really good for the batteries doing that over and over again, but for this test I wanted to be completely sure that this was fully charged. I have this in speed number 2 and in drill mode. This is the brushed version of the drill. On each of these boards, there are 159 dots, one for each hole I'm going to drill. I'm going to take this drill and do 159 holes. If I finish the whole board, I'll go to the next one, which will give me a total of 318 holes. And if I get to that point, well, I'm just going to call it success and stop. But we'll see how many holes this can drill with a brand new battery and a brand new bit. And then we're going to try the same exact thing, but with the brushless version. So this is the brush version, so we're going to get started right now. Just going to make sure that I'm totally in frame. Otherwise, I'm going to have to reshoot it, and I don't want to. All right, guys. Yep, I'm in frame. All right, guys, I'm going to get started here. This is the brushed motor, 20 volt, 3/8 inch spade bit, and going for up to 318 holes at the most. 3, 2, 1, and go. Alright guys, that's 159 so far. Let's see where the battery is. Battery's about halfway done, so I'm going to go into the second board and see how many we get. And if I do manage to do all, well, 318 of them, well then, yeah, I'm just going to stop and call it a victory. Alright guys, I'm going to keep going. I'm going to slide the camera back over here to the left side a little bit. And awesome. We'll keep going. Alright guys, there we go.
Alright guys, you just saw that the drill with the brushed motor, which is the less expensive of the two and the least powerful of the two, was able to do 288 holes in a row. That is 288 3/8 of an inch holes without stopping. Alright, let's go ahead and try again, this time with the brushless drill. The brushless drill should be able to do more than the brush. So that is the next drill coming up, should be able to do more than 288 holes, and we'll see if it can do it. Here we go.
Alright drill fans, the brushed motor just did 288 holes at 3/8 of an inch. I'm going to set this off to the side. And now we're going to try the same test with the brushless motor, and we'll see how it does. I'm aiming for at least 288 holes, hopefully a little bit more, because as it said on the box, it should last longer than the brushless motor. Let's give it a try and see what it does. Starting in 3, 2, 1, and go. Oh, on the side note, I forgot to show this. Fully charged battery, as you can see. Alright, keep going.
Alright, drill fans, you'll notice that the drill came to a stop. It looks like it's down to just one battery light. I even took the battery on and off and put it back on to see if it'd reset anything, and nope, that thing ain't turning. But here's the catch. The same thing happened when I was doing another test with the same drill, where I was testing it against a DeWalt Atomic. And guess what? About 2/3 or so away through the endurance testing, this drill stopped for no apparent reason. Folks speculated I was covering up the vents and it overheated. This time I made sure not to cover up the vents, especially during the endurance test. And guess what? It stopped also. But what's interesting is, in both the cases, in this video and the previous one I did with the DeWalt, after 10 minutes, without recharging the battery, without touching it, it just came back to life. And it kind of surprised me, but this is what happened about 10 minutes later, and then the testing continued.
Well, guys, some interesting news. As I was walking over to get the piece of wood to show you the side-by-side comparison, I did what all guys do, and I did this. And it seems to be back. Still down to just one light on the battery. I don't know why, but for some reason it stopped. Had to take a nap. So what I'm going to do is this. It feels it's got plenty of power. I'm going to keep drilling more holes and see what happens. 270 right now. And I have not put this on a charger.
Alright, drill fans, just to recap, the Brushles model is on 270 holes, needed a 10-minute nap, and it came back to life, and now the testing is continuing.
Forward. Unexpected. Alright guys, that is 318 holes. That's 318 holes done. And you can see that this is, well, you can't see, but I can feel this is getting a little bit warm. You can also see we're down to just still one light. So 318 is about where I was going to stop this. But you know what? Curiosity is starting to get the better of me.
And curiosity did get the better of him. Okay, looks like we're going to keep going. With hole 319, we're going to continue right where we left off with a new piece of wood. Here we go.
Here we go. Alright guys, at this point, I'm going to call it a day. So all that setting up the extra piece of wood and only got 3.5 holes in. So okay, I'm going to call it, it was 318 plus 3 is 321 and a half, about 321 holes is what I'm going to call it. Alright guys, so 321 and a half is where the brushless motor can do. And again, with the disclaimer that at hole 270, it had to take a nap. Alright guys, let's look at them. Let's look at the pieces of wood, and then we'll go into something else.
On the top, we have the brush drill with 288 holes. Pretty impressive for a brush drill. On the bottom, we have a brushless drill that did a total of 321 holes. However, we have to point out that on hole 270, the brushless drill did need to take a nap, but it recovered. And again, it had done something similar in a previous episode where I compared that same drill to a DeWalt drill. The Hart drill had to take a nap on that endurance test too. And then it came back to life about 10 minutes later and was perfectly fine. It makes me believe, and this is just a guess, that there's probably some kind of heat over protection circuit. I made it a point, very carefully this time, not to cover up any of the vent while doing the endurance test with the Hart drill this time to be sure it wasn't user error. If someone saw anything else, feel free to point it out, but I believe it's actually just a drill can only do so many holes before the heat protection circuits kick in and shut it down for 10 minutes. I can't swear to that. That is just based on a guess, based on observation. All right, guys, I think that's all there is to see here. Let's go on to the conclusion. As we look at the scorecard here, we can see the two drills are rather close. The biggest area where they have a difference is the amount of torque. And in addition to the torque, the other thing which I cannot test in such a short time, over a few days or a week, is how long the motors are going to last. So just as a reminder, in addition to what's shown on this chart, you have to consider the fact that brushless motors typically last longer than brush motors. All right, let's jump to the conclusion. So what's my conclusion? Well, between the brushless model and the brush model, the brushless definitely has more power. I can tell when I was using it, it just felt stronger. You can also see it to an extent in the lag bolt test. It drove in that lag bolt a little bit further, especially on speed number 2. The only concern I have at all about the brushless model is the fact that after 270 holes, it needed to take a nap, and it did something similar on a previous video I did against a DeWalt drill. That is, the Hart brushless model had to take a nap someplace during the endurance testing. The question though is, will that really affect you in real life? It was able to do 270 holes before it had to take a nap. And then it regained itself after about 10 minutes and managed to make it to 321 holes. So my question is this: are you really going to be doing 270 holes nonstop? Even if you're doing 270 holes in a day or even in an hour, are you really going to be sitting there just doing one after another, after another, after another? And also, is it unreasonable for a motor to heat up so much that it's got to take a nap if you do that? So unless you're doing something where you're going to be drilling hole after hole after hole nonstop without breaks, I, for one, personally like the brushless model better. It got better battery life overall in terms of number of holes drilled. It felt better in terms of having more power. So if a bit caught on something for a split second, it seemed to be able to power itself through it. Overall, it just feels like it's a good tool. In addition to that, I'll point out, just statistically, based on research other people have done, brushless motors typically last longer than brush motors. And that's because you don't have parts rubbing on each other nearly as much, especially electronic parts. So if I had to choose one or the other, I would go with the brushless model. Now, having said that, if you're going to be going out to buy this, my suggestion would be this. Before you run to your local store, go onto walmart.com and look for deals. Sometimes, and again, disclaimer here, I don't work for Walmart. I don't work for Hart. I don't work for any tool company. I'm just some guy that was fixing his house and had to buy tools and wasn't sure what to buy. So I figured if I wasn't sure what to buy at first, other people may have the same issue, and I started a tool review channel, hence me being here now. But before I'd run out to Walmart and buy something, I would go to walmart.com and I would take a look to see if you can't find any good deals online. Especially if you're looking for brushless tools, look for the brushless kits. Sometimes buying these tools as a kit is much cheaper than buying them individually, either online or at the store. And also, I've noticed virtually identical tools or a combination of tools, maybe one comes with an extra bit, one doesn't come with a bit but an extra battery, are available online that are not at your store. And a lot of times, at least I've noticed from my limited experience, I got better deals online than at the store. And on occasion, worst cases, what was at the store was actually the same as what's online, and I was no worse off. But at least I knew what my options were. So I suggest walmart.com before going to your local store. All right, guys, if you've enjoyed this video, please hit the subscribe key. Most people don't know it, but if I don't get 1,000 subscribers, even if I get 1 million views, YouTube won't pay me. If YouTube doesn't pay me, I'll have to live under a bridge, and I don't want to live under a bridge. Or as the kids say these days, go ahead and smash that subscribe key, will ya? I'm not a kid, so I won't quite say it that way. All right, guys, you have a great day. I appreciate your time and your help, and you guys have a very pleasant day. Bye-bye.